Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Tauya Matope. In this video today, I'm just going to talk to you about the downsides of living in London. Um, um, I, I'm gonna post this video because when I mentioned about practicing in London and then moving out of London to come and practice in Coventry, somebody asked me in the comment section in my inbox to say, what were the downsides of practicing or living in London? So I'm just gonna give a few pointers or a few nuggets from my own experience of living in London. First and foremost, living in London is associated with high living costs. That's one thing you need to bear in mind, especially for social workers coming from abroad to come and practice in England. You will find that the living costs of living in London are higher as compared to the other regions in England. That is a fact, and you can't run away from that. You will find that the rentals in London might be so high such that they might chew up three quarters, sometimes I'll say maybe half, more than half of your salary, or sometimes three quarters of your salary. So you need to, if you're having a spouse, you need both of you to be working to be able to survive living in London and having a comfortable life where you can afford basics and so forth. So when I talk of high cost of living, I want to give you an example. Most properties to rent in London, like a three-bed property, a decent three-bed property, you would need something not less than £1,500 to rent a decent three-bed house in London. Sometimes it might even go up to 1,800, sometimes even to £2,000. So it depends with the location, area where you are living, and the type of property that you are renting as well. But you will find that if you happen to get a property which is less than 1,500, you are very lucky. And when I talk of high cost of living, on top of the rentals that you'll be paying council tax, you would need transport, you would need food, and you would need, to pay your bills like your gas, electric, and so forth. So all those things add up, and you will find that for some people who are, working and living in London, it's possible that one person's salary goes to, rentals and bills alone. And if it is two of you working, then the other person's salary, you might be, doing other things, savings, or doing other things that you may want to do. So high cost of living, that's number one, obviously, that I can talk about when it comes to living and working in London. And then point number two, which I need to bring out to you out there, is London is, I wouldn't want to say overcrowded, but there is a higher population as compared to other regions of England or other regions of the UK for that matter. So, overcrowding brings its own challenges, definitely. Things like pollution, air pollution, mostly noise pollution as well, and to an extent, congestion, which is one of the challenges, that you obviously face if you are to live and work in London. Congestion. I will give you an example. The same distance that I'm driving at the moment where I'm living, going to my workplace, is the same distance I was driving when I was living in London, from where I was living to my workplace. If I use the shorter route of going to my workplace, which was about 14 miles. But you will find that when I was living in London, I would take almost an hour and a half to 2 hours to get to the office, as compared to where I'm living now, where it takes me about 25 minutes, I'll be in the office. That's just one example of how, living in London can impact on you in terms of congestion and, you know, high stress levels, because you spend much of your time sitting, in a car when the roads are so congested. And obviously I spoke about pollution and, air pollution, noise pollution, all those kind of things, which also, go on in London, which might increase your stress levels to an extent, really. And the other thing which I also noted about London is the life is so fast paced to an extent that you always want to catch up with what's happening. it's that fast paced. It is what it is. For those who are coming from Africa or for those who are coming from other countries, you can imagine, say for example, if you're coming from Australia, obviously, if you are in Alice Springs, it might be different from being in Tennant Creek, or if you are in Tennant Creek, it might be different from somebody who is in Melbourne. It's just what it is. Being in a bigger city, there are associated costs which comes with you being in a bigger city as compared to living outside a bigger city. And for those who are coming from Africa, say for example from Zimbabwe, living in Harare is different from living in Marondera or living in Bindura. For those who are coming from Namibia, living in Windhoek might be different from living in Kubabis or living in Ludarites or living in Katima Mulilo, something like that. And the same also those coming from South Africa, living in Joburg might be different from somebody who is living, in Limpopo or in the Eastern Cape. It is what it is. So those are some of the downsides of living in London. And obviously, this fast-paced lifestyle and the demands of living in London, there's a high, cost of living in terms of, the lifestyle itself. Everything that you can think of, you need to pay. Parking, you pay. If you want to go to other places, simple places that you may want to go with the kids and enjoy, you have to pay. Whereas out here, for example, where I'm living now, I'm not going to mention the exact location, but in the West Midlands, for example, many of the places that I go to when I go into town in Coventry, I don't pay. Sometimes you just park, you don't pay. There are a few places where you need to go where you need to pay, but it's not always the case that whenever you park somewhere, you have to pay as it is in London, where even if you park in the streets, in the residential areas, there are some streets where you can't even park because you're not the resident, for example. So those are some of the stressful lifestyles which are associated with, living in a bigger city like London. And I'm sure for those who live in bigger cities like Glasgow, or Birmingham, would also, mention about the same things which I'm talking about in terms of living in London. The last but not least is the lack of green spaces. London is now so built up that most of the areas which were green spaces have been taken over by buildings or have been taken over by some other things which have been put up there. So you'll find that there is a lack of green spaces in London, such that if you want to go, on a walk or leisurely, things that you would do in such green spaces, the places are now limited where you can actually go. So it's because London is so built up that you find it difficult to even escape the city and find some green spaces, just for you to go and relax. I'm not saying there are no spaces for people to relax in London, get me well, but the places are getting less and less and less because of the development which is happening at a faster pace in a bigger London, in a bigger city like London, because of demand for housing, demand for office space, and all those kind of things. Yeah. So thank you so much. I hope to the viewer who asked me this question, you have been answered. And for some people who are looking at coming to live or to work in England, you have been answered as compared to living in a bigger city like London and living in a smaller city, like for example, Coventry or something like that. Thank you. Please, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe, hit that notification bell so that when I post another video, you'll be the first one to watch and you'll be able to share with your colleagues. Thanks. Bye-bye.